Yes, coming to you live again on a Monday here, the last Monday of the 2024 year. We got New Year's Eve tomorrow, and then Wednesday is New Year's Day. It's going to be 2025 already. So the next time we talk to you, it'll be next year. And of course, I had to get some dad joke in, which is part of my favorite time of the year. Is being the all right. Well, see you next year. Or
Right.
whoa, I haven't seen you since last year.
Oh yeah.
But as you can see, we've got a little bit different. Our good friend of the Armchair Banter, roughing the podcast. He's got a new college basketball podcast starting up this Friday. Our good friend Hayden McDaniel is joining us before we are enemies on New Year's Day. Not really.
Actually,
Alabama's
that's
going to
tomorrow.
roll.
That's New Year's Eve. Tomorrow is when we're enemies.
Is it? I thought it was.
Breaking news: Dylan just found out his team was playing tomorrow.
I ain't gonna get to watch it.
I was about to say, dear
So
Dylan's boss, he is sick. If you are
nah, don't
watching,
work. I don't get sick days. Oh yeah, what the hell? What do you know? It is on Tuesday. Huh. Shows how much I've been paying attention.
you've been paying attention to. You're just worried about January 6th. That's what you're worried about right now.
That is exactly it. Is January 6th is the day that my focus has been shifted to as NDSU takes on Montana State for the national title, which, as it stands now, we will be doing a live show on Thursday as my other good friend Zach Willis, former NDSU offensive lineman and founder and owner of Big Deck Barbecue, is going to be joining us to preview that the national championship game on Thursday. So it'll be at 7 again on Facebook and YouTube. So stay tuned for that. And with that, Hayden, welcome on. How was your Christmas? How are things down in the banana belt?
Um, Overall, Christmas was pretty good. It was busy overall. Like that's one thing. When you get married, Dylan, you'll learn it's nonstop. You think it's nonstop now. Just wait till you get married. You have things with your family, you have things with the wife's family, and you're just trying to balance it out and make sure you get even a quality enough time with both sides. So that part is an adjustment and it's exhausting. Like I got home Christmas night from my wife's side of the family going up to see her grandmother. I was exhausted. So it's like I'm like, why am I so tired? I've sat in the car and I've just talked to people all day. I'm like, maybe that's why I'm
That,
tired because it's just I've been talking nonstop and just dealing with all that deal or just hanging out with both sides of the family. I feel like we probably had 4 or 5 events in 3 days, so
oof.
it was a lot. But overall, it was good. Always good to take some time to see family. Always good to have a few weeks off of work, but to kind of refresh and recoup for the next year. But overall, it was good. It was fun, and looking forward to the new year. I'm turning 30 not or next Tuesday, so the 7th. So a week from tomorrow I'll be 30.
Ooh.
So, it's one of those things where you're like, okay, I'm starting to feel a little old now, but overall, things are looking up,
Yeah,
I guess you could say.
and I turned 30 on the 16th,
Oh
so
wow.
so it's yeah, you got about 9 days on me. So I got 9 extra days in my 20s than you do.
Absolutely.
But
And enjoy those 9 extra days.
yeah, it's weird, man. So Saturday I went over to a buddy's house and we were just kind of hanging out. We were watching the football game. Game got over. Everybody left. It was like 9:15. And as I was leaving, I was like, "Well, thanks for having us. A good time." Blah blah blah. I was like, "Man, it's crazy. It's 9:15. We're all out the door. Where 5-6 years ago, we were just showing up at 9:15 and we were staying up till 2 o'clock in the morning.
Dude,
Man, have things changed."
I am I am telling you, like it is it is the weirdest thing cuz I mean, I feel like not even 2 or 3 years ago I was just like, all right, what we doing? What time? Okay, 9 o'clock. Okay, yeah, I'll be there. Getting home at 2 a.m. just being able to do that every single night. Now you like need 3 or 4 days of rest after a night like that. Like it's insane. Like and at this point, it's just all downhill. Like I was telling Peyton the other day, I was like, I used to go to bed at 2 o'clock in the morning and be able to wake up at like 6 or 7 and be fine. I said now, I said 10 o'clock, 10:30 comes rolling around. I'm ready to just wind down. So it's odd. It's odd. It's not as young as I used to be, and I don't see how I did it now. It's weird. It's very weird. And
Yeah,
it's the same with
it's
getting up in the morning. This morning we got home last night from our trip, probably around 10:30. I had to take a shower, get to bed. I probably didn't get in bed till about midnight, and I was still up at like 6:30 or 7 o'clock this morning. And I'm like, why can't I go back to sleep? Like this is weird. Like used to, I'd be sleeping till like 9 or 10, but can't do it anymore. It's weird.
Yeah, it was like today. I had to go and deliver, and I looked at my clock. I was kind of tossing and turning for about 45 minutes, and I look over at the clock. It's 3:52 in the morning. My alarm was set to go off at 4, and I was like, well, I ain't gonna get 8 minutes of sleep, so I'll just get up and start the day, and that's what I did.
Mm, that is.
But it is it wasn't as brutal as a few weeks ago when I had to go do games. And I think I told you about this where
Oh, yeah.
I was in Bowman, which is about an hour 15 away from where I live in Dickinson, and I was in there for work, and then I was going to call 2 basketball games after. Second game goes into overtime, and I don't leave Bowman till like 9:30. I get home. I had to shower. Probably got to bed at about 11:45. Alarm went off at 4. Up working the next day. So it was. I've never been someone that can sleep in. If I stay out till 2 o'clock in the morning, I'll probably be up at 6 or 7 in the morning. So that's I envy the people that can sleep in, especially on weekends, like where I'll go to bed midnight, 7 o'clock. I'm up, ready to go.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter. I somehow find a way to function, but nonetheless, here we've had enough about our getting old, which we're not even really that old in the grand scheme of it, but we
There's
feel
gonna be
old.
some boomer in the comments. Y'all
And
aren't that old. Wait till you're 60.
you know what? I'm okay with being 60. I'm perfectly all right with it, man. I've learned. I think old people have had it right all along. And frankly, I think if you're still 30 years old and you're staying out till 2 o'clock in the morning every weekend and doing that, I probably don't want to be you. It's just time to grow up.
Right.
That's the best way to put it. It's like it's fun every now and again, but if you're doing it every weekend and that's what your life revolves around, man, you got to find some new priorities in your life.
Oh yeah.
But maybe start a podcast or meet some great friends and have him on as a guest, kind of like what we're doing right now here. So it is college football playoff quarterfinal eve, I guess, because there is a game tomorrow after Michigan plays Alabama, which I thought was New Year's Day because that game is always usually New Year's Day. But I digress here. We're just going to go down in order, give our predictions, and then wrap up, get out of here. So we'll start Penn State versus Boise State in the Fiesta Bowl, a bowl that Boise State has never lost. And I think I saw that Penn State has a pretty good record in that. I think they haven't lost since like the 70s in that bowl. So something has got to give in this game, Hayden. Fiesta Bowl, it starts at 5:30 Mountain Time on ESPN. Penn State 11-point favorites. Genty, the Heisman runner-up, he's going to be rested for Boise, which is huge. He had a couple of weeks to heal up after Penn State had to play week and a half ago after a dominating effort of SMU. That defense, 2 pick sixes, forced a couple more turnovers in the process as well. But this Penn State defense to me is going to be tested because the weakness on that Penn State defense is their run game. You look at when they played Oregon or when they played Ohio State, that they were able to gash that Penn State defense, even going back to Michigan last year where it was 32 straight runs. It's something that they have struggled with for the last few years. and potentially could be, especially if Genty gets a couple of big ones. How is that Penn State defense going to react?
Right. I I agree. It's weird that the matchup last week just favored Penn State. I mean, I don't think you're going to see Boise throw two pick sixes. I don't think you're going to see Boise throw two interceptions because they have such a strong run game. So I think that's going to be the deciding factor in this. Um, he's going to get hot. Genty's going to get hot in this game at some point. It's just a matter of how Penn State can contain him, and that you look at this game at first and you think, oh, Penn State should win this game, but then you look at it again and you're like, I don't know. Penn or Boise State's strengths match up well with Penn State's weaknesses, like you mentioned earlier. So I'm very, very curious to see how this game plays out. Um, Penn State got their, I don't even know if you want to call that a big win at this point in the first round of the playoffs at home against a team that you probably should have beaten. A team that I'm not going to say didn't belong. I'm not going to try to sound like I'm not going to let my bias get in the way. Um, I mean, the conference, you look at the conference top to bottom, and that you could say that that the ACC didn't deserve an automatic bid. But I don't know if I still call that a big win. James Franklin still has to get over those hurdles. Not he didn't prove anything to me in that game. So I think this game is going to be very interesting to see because I mean Boise isn't one of those teams that you look at and you're like, oh, we got to get over that hurdle. Oh, we got to play Boise. But what I saw against Oregon this year, who I've said it all year long. You've probably heard me say it on my podcast. I probably said it on here. I think Oregon's the best team in the country. When I look at it, like statistically, when I look at it on paper, I think Oregon's the best team. I think they have the most depth of any team in the country. And Genty had his day, had a good day against Oregon in the loss, and they only lost by 3. And that at first we thought, okay, what's wrong with Oregon? But now as the season's gone on, that's not a bad 3-point victory. And I think now when you look back at it, it was more of what Boise did right instead of what Oregon did wrong. So they've got that common opponent there. Both played well against Oregon, but both again came up short. So I'm very curious to see if they can build on that game against Oregon and expose the mediocre run defense or defensive line at Penn State. Oh, and there goes something.
Yeah. And I think offensively for Penn State is they had a couple of turnovers. SMU wasn't really able to capitalize on it. I think the game plan by Kotelnicki, I think it's going to be important to get and you've seen him from when they lost to Ohio State where they struggled to get Warren and Singleton and Allen the ball. You've seen him make a more aggressive attempts early in the game to get them involved and get them a part of the game plan. I think you're going to see that again. I guess we can just go right to predictions here. I I think Boise keeps this close for a half, but I think Penn State, I think in the end they've just got better athletes and I think they're an overall deeper team. And I think Kotelnicki is able to get Warren and Allen and Singleton involved and be able to burn that Boise defense for a deep shot over the top where that Aller hits. And I think this is close. I think Boise might even lead at halftime. But in the end, I think Penn State ends up pulling away, makes some second half adjustments. And I have them winning 31-13.
I agree in the fact that Penn State wins this game and finds a way to win. However, I think it's close the whole game. Just like the Oregon game. I think Boise's able to keep it close. I think it's like Nate says on our show all the time. Penn State fans are going to have a pucker butthole for 60 minutes. I strongly believe that. I think I do think Penn State wins, but I think it's more like a 20, not 24-21. I'd probably go. I'm leaning 27-24, 31-24, somewhere in that ballpark is what I have the score as. I think Boise's really good, and I think they have the ability to keep this close the whole entire game.
All right, Hayden's got Boise State covering. but Penn State winning. Let's go down to the Peach Bowl. Arizona State, the 4 seed, is a 13-point dog against the Texas Longhorns.
That's a shame, by
Texas.
the way. That's a shame. That is disrespect to Arizona State. Sorry, continue. I digress.
We will. I guess we'll find out. Texas going back to the scene of the crime where they lost the SEC championship game. This game's 11 a.m. on Wednesday on ESPN. Um, Arizona State has been a Cinderella run, projected to take last in the Big 12, end up winning the whole thing. Cam Scatterbo has been fun to watch, along with Sean Levitt, who's been a really good quarterback for them. Their coach has been a Cinderella story, whose name's escaping me at the moment.
Kenny Dillingham?
Yes, Kenny Dillingham, a star, young coach, and Texas played really well against Clemson, I thought. They ran the ball for 292 yards, something that they've done at a pretty good clip all year. Outside of the 2 games of when they've played Georgia, they haven't ran the ball very well. And the way I see it in this game is Texas is not playing Georgia. They're playing Arizona State, who does have a good run defense. I think they're ranked 27th in the country. I saw on the year in rush defense. They led the Big 12 in rushing defense. But I think this could be a possession game. I think Texas, like they've done all year, I think outside of Georgia, they've proven that they can move the ball, and then they stall out in the red zone. Are they going to be able to? Is Stark going to be able to dial up some plays? Are they healthy enough to where Quinn Ewers can make some plays with his arm? Is he healthy enough to do something with his legs? Because when he's been able to do extend plays with his legs and make things happen, he's been really good, except I think that ankle and abdominal injury that he's had earlier in the year has still been kind of lingering
easily
for him. And I think Texas, their D-line up front in the trenches, I think that's where they're really they could overpower Arizona State. I think Texas is going to force Levitt to make a play with over the top, and with their top Arizona State's top receiver out. I find that they're going to be.
I thought he was playing. He's out.
I was listening to Klatt's podcast today, and he was saying he wasn't playing.
Wow, that's news.
So it's going to be very reliant on Cam Scatterbo, which makes it easy for that Texas defense to cue on him. I think this similarly, though. I do think Arizona State is. I think this is going to be a game that's close at halftime, and it's going to be a matter of who makes those right adjustments in the second half. It's going to come away with a win.
Yeah, I would agree with that. When I say it's disrespectful, I don't see this being a 2-touchdown game. I could see it being a 10-point game. But at the end of the day, you said it. I think it was you. Yeah, you said it in the group chat the other day. When Sark is on his game, he's one of the best coaches in college football. Especially now. I mean, he is, and I have to agree with that. When his offensive game planning is on and he's had time to prepare, he's one of the better coaches. When it's off, it's awful. But when it's on, he's one of the best. He's easily one of the best play callers in college football. I would even give him the edge over Lane Kiffin and that when it comes to offensive play calling. I agree. Now that Tyson's out, now that if that's true, that's going to be a huge loss for Arizona State. They almost needed him to have a shot to win this game. That way to kind of balance out Scatterbo. But I still think they have the ability to keep it close for a half, maybe 3/4. But then I see Texas pulling away at the end. I'm curious to see if Quinn Ewers is struggling in this game. If he's struggling to, complete passes, he's inaccurate, overthrowing, underthrowing, throws a few interceptions. Does Sark dare in the college football playoffs in a stadium where coaches are known to pull quarterbacks in big games and the backup comes in and pulls off the miracle. Is Sark willing to do what Nick Saban did in 2018 and come in and and um is he willing to do what Saban did and uh make the move, put Arch in, and see what Arch can do? I I mean, we'll see. I'm just curious about that. Like if you were just struggling, does Sark make the move and bring Arch in? Because I know that's what the fans want to see, and I know. I mean, regardless of what happens, this whole playoff run, Ewers is out at the end of the year. But anyway, I digress. Sorry, I went on a tangent there. I'm taking Texas to win this game. I think it's a 10-point game. I'm going to go 31-21 Texas. But Quinn Ewers, man, he's going to be the factor in this game to see if Texas can separate themselves in this. And if he can't, like I said, that's where the questions are going to start coming in. If he's struggling at halftime, the Sark, does he do it? Does he do the move that changed Alabama's football's fate, or Alabama's fate in 2018? So, I mean, does he dare make that move that the guy he learned under for several years was willing to do?
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Unless it's just something that I think they're going to throw in some type of package for Arch, but I think outside of the Georgia games, I think Ewers has been pretty solid, and he's not playing Georgia like I have said. Right. I think Arizona State hangs in for a half, and then in the second half, I think both lines of Texas take over. And I think they end up pulling away. I got Texas 28-10.
Okay.
So
that's just way more high scoring for some reason. Now that I think about it, than I probably should.
Yeah. It's gonna lead into. I think we have 2 blowouts the first 2 games, potential blowouts, and then these final 2 games of the day on New Year's Day are going to be electric and live up to the hype, both of them. And we'll start with the granddaddy of them all, the Rose Bowl, Oregon versus Ohio State. Oregon, the 1 seed, but are 2.5-point underdogs to the Buckeyes after Ohio State completely dismantled the Volunteers. This game's at 3 p.m. on ESPN. Rematch from a thriller in Autzen. I wonder when the last time 2 Big Ten teams squared off in the Rose Bowl for the Rose Bowl game. I don't think. Well, obviously it's never happened.
I don't know if that's ever.
But I don't think it has. But Ohio State,
but that's when Oregon was in the Pac-12.
Yep. Yeah, that was because and they've played a couple of times.
I know for sure in 2009. It seems like Oregon's played Wisconsin a handful of times in the Rose Bowl.
Yep. But Ohio State's coming off their best performance of the year, just a dominating effort. Can they get off to a fast start again like they did? How much of this line to me is recency bias, because we have seen this Ohio State team. This is also the same Ohio State team that lost to Michigan. And they've come out flat against Nebraska, a handful of teams throughout the year. And how much of that was just an emotional response of that they put it all together, and now that they put that behind them, is this going to be a situation where what happens if they get off to that slow start again and Oregon is able to string a couple of drives and get in front and kind of take Ohio State out of their game? Dylan Gabriel, who is kind of quietly at a year that nobody talks about, and he's put together an incredible season. I mean, he's so good at getting
the fact that he's not moving up the draft board, he's not a first-round pick right now, is a slap in the face.
Yep. And, the key for Oregon right now, or in this game to me, is are they going to be they got to limit the pass rush like they did in that first game to where that they can't, to where Ohio State's got to drop or have to keep sending guys, which allows receivers free or one-on-one coverage, which Ohio State has been known to do, is also, kind of grab onto the receiver and get some pass interference calls. And, for me, I think this game is going to come down because I expect both teams to move the ball. I expect both teams to score. It's going to come down to who converts their red zone visits into touchdowns instead of settling for field goals.
I agree. I think that's what it's going to come. I think that's a very good point. Um, I'm still not sold on Will Howard. That game against Tennessee didn't change that. Um, I, I don't think he's that good. I just don't. Um, he's got good receivers, and they've made him look good all year long. They made him look really good in that first round game. I also think there was a lot of pissed off energy from the Buckeyes in that game against Tennessee. There was a lot of trash talk. There was a lot of talk of Tennessee fans taking over that stadium, and Tennessee players coming out and no shirts on and acting like a bunch of idiots, like we talked about earlier. Um, all that stuff. So
I was talking to Grant about this on our last week's episode. How different is that game if they don't call that face mask, or if Tennessee doesn't get a face mask and Ohio State goes 3-and-out?
I think that had potential to be game of the year. Um, definitely the best game of the weekend. Um, but I agree that face mask call kind of changed everything in the first quarter, in the first series of the game. After that, it was like Tennessee got punched in the mouth, and they just
And they
couldn't
didn't
bounce back.
respond.
They didn't respond, and as an Alabama fan watching that game, it frustrated me to see Ohio State be able to do that. But then again, Ohio State had it at home. Alabama was in Knoxville, and Tennessee's one of those teams. They are. You look at it this way: they're the tough kid that hides behind their friends when they talk smack, or when they're that kid at school that they're the tough guy, but they have to have like four or five people around them to to say anything. That they're kind of the keyboard warrior to an extent. They're a good team at home because they have 100 and seems like 150,000 fans.
That aren't afraid to throw rocks at people.
Yeah, and they aren't afraid of. Yeah, they're the tough guy when things are in their favor, but when things aren't in their favor and they start to struggle, they can't, and they don't have that crutch to fall back on. They don't know what to do. So anyway, I say that to say I didn't take much away from that. Um, well, I did take a lot away with that. Tennessee was not as good as I thought they were. That defense, but anyway, I say that. But now I'm going to talk about Oregon. Oregon has been good wherever they play, and Dylan Gabriel is, in my opinion, a top three quarterback in college football. And like I said, should be a first round pick in the NFL draft. And that, I mean, it's just that simple. He should be, the fact that we're talking Cam Ward, we're talking Shador being top picks, which deservedly so. Why aren't we talking about Dylan Gabriel in that conversation as well? Um, but anyway, when you say it's going to come down to who can convert in the red zone, I give that edge to Oregon. Ohio State's had multiple situations throughout the year where they get in the red zone and they stall. So I give that edge to Oregon. I'm going to go ahead and say it. I picked Oregon last time, and I remember coming on your show and picking Oregon as well. I picked Oregon to win last time. They ended up winning, and I know it's very difficult to beat a team twice, especially a team like Ohio State. However, I still think Oregon is the better team. I think Oregon is the best team. I will say it again. Oregon is the best team in the country. Taking Oregon to win this game. I'm going to go Oregon 35-28. I think it's a touchdown game, but at the end of the day, Oregon's athletes, Oregon's depth. is the difference in this game, and they're able to pull it off.
Yeah, and outside of that first month of the year where new quarterback breaking in three new starting offensive linemen, really trying to figure out what this team was. That's really the only time Oregon has looked bad, and it turns out it was against some solid teams. I mean, Idaho, that was their Super Bowl, who went on to beat a FBS team the next week. Their head coach is now the head coach in at New Mexico. So, and then the Boise State, obviously, we talked about them earlier. They're in the college football playoff. Genty had a good argument to win the Heisman, probably had as good of an argument as anybody to win the Heisman Trophy. And after that, since that Boise State game, Oregon has been the most consistent team throughout. They struggled on the road again in a tough atmosphere in Camp Randall. They found a way to pull it out. And I think Oregon's floor is still a little bit higher than Ohio State's. They've handled their business. They've been the best team in college football all year. I think that continues. I got the Ducks 35. I got Ohio State 31.
Oh wow, I was leaning that score, but I was like, yeah,
When you said 35, I was like, come on, say 31. But but let's get to the last game of the day, the Sugar Bowl at 6:45 Mountain Time. Ooh, that is late there over down in the Eastern time zone here. It's Georgia, 1-point favorites over the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. And it's already been announced that Carson Beck is not playing, which might be a good thing if you're a Georgia fan, because he seemed more focused about vehicles. I think we might have to start the conversation of the Cavender twins major distractions and performance killers, because Jake Ferguson has been absolute booty cheeks for the Cowboys this year. Carson Beck has taken a fall. I mean, they seem to kind of be distractions for their significant others and not putting their mind on football here. But Gunnar Stockton is the QB for the Bulldogs. Can he make a play when he has to? In the SEC championship game, he played good enough, but they did not have him throw the ball hardly at all. So what are they going to do? What's Mike Bobo going to do to kind of get him involved in the passing game? How are they going to get his confidence up, get him some confidence to where he feels comfortable? Big thing is got to avoid the turnovers, especially in this game. I think this is going to be a low scoring game. I think this is going to be it's going to be a physical game. I think when this game ends and everybody goes to bed, it's like, I hurt. And I think defensively for Georgia, you have to find a way to stop the run and make Riley Leonard beat you from the pocket, because he can extend plays with his arm, but if you keep him in the pocket, see how he is as a passer. And it's going to come, ultimately, I think it's going to come down to what Georgia defensive line shows up. Is it the one that showed up against Alabama or Ole Miss, or is it going to be the one that showed up twice versus Texas? Depending on which one you see, I think early on, you're going to see which team shows up early, which Georgia team you're going to get early on these first couple of series in the game.
Right. I agree. The battle up front is going to be the deciding factor. You got Notre Dame's defensive line, Georgia's offensive line, and then vice versa. The physicality in this game is going to be intense. Like you mentioned, we're going to be hurting watching that game. Man, this is such a hard game to pick. Georgia having multiple weeks to prepare and to get Gunnar Stockton ready could be
Kirby Smart motivating them and telling them, y'all hear that? Y'all don't think they don't think y'all no good. They don't think y'all no good.
Believe me.
Was that a good Southern accent right there?
That was definitely that was definitely you'd fit in.
Did I sounded like a Kirby Smart or a Georgia fan?
Yeah, exactly. This game is, man, You could tell me either team won this game by a field goal, and I wouldn't be surprised. Um, Kirby having multiple weeks to prepare is the only thing that makes me think Georgia has the edge in this game. But it could also be it's been such a weird season, Dylan, that the team that lost to Northern Illinois week 2 at home, I mean, could potentially
After beating Texas A&M on the road.
Yeah, could potentially turn around and win this whole thing. They're built to win it all. I would not be surprised. I think the winner of this game, though, does end up playing Oregon in the national championship. I will say that. I think the winner of this game goes on to play Oregon in the national championship. They'll win their semifinal matchup. I think both teams are better than Penn State. And then they'll go on to play Oregon in Atlanta. But the safe pick is to pick Georgia to win this game close. And I think I'm going to go with the safe pick. But, dude, I don't know, man. I really don't know. Notre Dame's a really good football team. And hold on. I just got a text from my wife. She's sitting right next to me. Okay. Well, I give the edge to Georgia in this, but I don't know, man. I'm going to flip a coin. You got a coin? I'm asking my wife, do you have a coin?
I got a penny right here.
All right, Dylan.
This is a live coin flip here for the winner of the Sugar Bowl.
Heads, Notre Dame. Tails, Georgia. Flip it. You got to show me what it is, too.
All right, so you can't really see it here, but
all right, we're going to flip it.
I don't think I've ever flipped a penny before. So
That's
here
weird.
It goes. All right, what'd you say? You said it was heads?
Heads, Notre Dame, tails, Georgia.
Okay. So just flipped it, and you can't really see it.
I can't.
It's a heads. So it's a heads. So you're going with the Irish.
That's where I'm going.
You're going with the Irish. It's the first time we have disagreed here on the show. As I got Georgia. I think this Georgia D-line shows up. I think Kirby is a master motivator. I think he has been telling that this team that, we got a backup quarterback. You guys are done. You're cooked. You guys can't do nothing. You don't even deserve to be here. The SEC tried to screw you guys. All this, and you know what? We're here. I think Georgia hears that. I think Gunnar Stockton is able to move the ball 20-20. I think they are able to punch the ball in one time, and I think they end up settling for 3 field goals, and I think that's enough. I got Georgia 16, Notre Dame 7 or 14. Georgia 16, Notre Dame 14.
I've got it 16-13. So
we're right. Yeah, our scores are close.
Yeah,
our scores are close here.
You just have the indications. You look at this. You look at it all year long. The Ohio State Oregon game, they have a sample. They have a sample. It was 32-31. So that kind of gave me that one, and then all these other games, you can just have that. They have that feel to it with the scores.
They do, and it's going to be an exciting day of football. Probably while you sit on your chair, trying to avoid the Wednesday scaries from the New Year's Eve party from the night before. Do you got any plans for New Year's tomorrow night?
New Year's on the couch. That's
New Year's on the couch. All right.
I don't need to go anywhere. It's like we talked about earlier. When you get older, you don't need to go anywhere for New Year's Eve.
Yeah, well, and the ball will drop when it's actually midnight. It's only going to be like 10 p.m. here where I'm at. But
Peyton just wanted me to show you something to all the Georgia fans out there. If this thing's in regulation,
Georgia can only win games in OT. I like that. That's good. That is good here, but I think that wraps up the show here. The
Should
new
we just for good measure pick the Reliant Quest Bowl tomorrow?
well, I mean, I'll get it started. I don't have much high expectations for Michigan, and it shows considering I didn't even realize that they played New Year's Eve instead of New Year's Day. I don't know why I thought that, and I've had it just engraved in my head ever since. But I Alabama is 14.5 point favorites. I bet they probably win by more than that. I
Wow.
think the difference in the game is going to be quarterback play. You have Jalen Milroe. Michigan has Davis Warren. I think I'll take Milroe 12 times out of 10 in that one. But there are brighter days ahead for the Wolverines. I was listening to a former guest, Isaiah Hole, on his show today, and he was saying that from watching practice, that Bryce Underwood already looks like the best quarterback on Michigan's roster, which is saying something. So it's going to be interesting
He
to
can't
see.
play tomorrow, right?
He cannot. I'm
Okay,
sure.
good.
The way, and this is a whole other podcast, but with the way things are trending, I wouldn't be shocked at some point down the line if you do see like incoming freshmen that are practicing or enrolling early able to play in bowl games.
Oh yeah, like we could use Isaiah Horton and Derek Meadows wide receiver commits. We could use them tomorrow, and please, I mean, because we're all of our backup receivers are in the portal and playing. Don't like competition and playing at Baylor, Kansas, and one other school. I forget where. Um, I think Kentucky. So they're like all three of ours are three of our backup receivers. So I mean, we could use those guys tomorrow. But that I agree. I think that could be something that we see in the future. Um, I do think. Look, I've seen good Alabama and I've seen bad Alabama multiple times this year. Whichever team shows up tomorrow, uh, neither would surprise me. Um, I'm gonna take it with the fact that this is probably Jalen Milroe's last game at Alabama. He's going to be motivated. The team is pissed off that they didn't get into the college football playoff, and they've had to watch these yawn snoozers of the first round. And so I think they're going to be motivated to play and show. And look, and I'm not saying this to talk trash. The fact that they're playing against the athletic director who was in charge of the committee, that might be also that would motivate me a little bit.
I never thought about that, but yeah, that could happen. That could be a part of it. And Michigan, they're going to be without Mason Graham. They're going to be without Kenneth Grant. They're going to be without Will Johnson. All the guys that have declared. Colson Loveland isn't going to be
Donovan
playing.
Edwards
So
too, right?
yep, Donovan Edwards, Khalil Mullings isn't playing. So it's going to be. This is a spring game, and I didn't have high hopes for the bowl game. I was hoping they were going to get to play like some slapdick team like a Virginia Tech or like a North Texas or something,
Right.
just so they could say they got a bowl win. But the big thing for this team is getting bowl eligible. Their season was already a success. They beat Ohio State, and getting those 15 extra practices for the future of the program, because I mean those 15 practices huge for a guy like a Bryce Underwood to get
No,
reps,
100%.
get familiar with the new offense and get familiar with his teammates. Still some work to do in the portal, if you ask me. I'd like to see him go out and get another receiver and D tackle, but
And
um,
I agree with you when you say better days ahead for Michigan. I think Michigan's going to be going to be solid next
it'd
year.
be nice to have Justice Haynes playing tomorrow.
Believe me, I don't want to play that kid, especially after didn't get any carries this season. Um, I I also think that the same is for Alabama. Both teams had a unique offseason this past offseason. The head coach left in January instead of the normal, time when head coaches normally leave for other jobs or retire, because they both had to play in the Rose Bowl. And Michigan won a national championship. Alabama played in the college football playoff. So they had a unique offseason. Didn't have a lot of time to get ready for the trend. They were in the middle of transition, in the midst of trying to keep players, in the midst of trying to keep everything together and get new players. And so I think that next year you're going to see both teams. If these two teams play again, it'll probably be in a bigger stage next year. Um,
Absolutely.
because I I'm a big believer in Kalen DeBoer and what he can do, especially when he gets his offense and his system in. I'm very excited to see how that all comes into form at Alabama. So I think both teams have a brighter future, and I think we could see both teams next year in the college football playoff. I think Alabama wins tomorrow. Um, Michigan's defense is really good, so I think it could be one of those mid-scoring games, like a 26, 27 to 10, 27 to 14 kind of games. I wouldn't be surprised if y'all covered, but I think at the end of the day, Alabama's motivated. Jalen Miller is motivated. Some of these seniors want to go out one last time with a win.
Yeah. And I think that's the other part of it too is like Michigan, they didn't have a quarterback this year. And part of that was because JJ didn't know. I mean, JJ still had a year of eligibility left. And by the time he made his decision, because they were still playing late, and he kind of waited until the deadline because I don't think he really knew what he wanted to do. So they by the time they found out they weren't going to have JJ McCarthy, all the good portal quarterbacks were already taken, so they were kind of stuck in that no man's land area. And some of the hires that Sharon made, the Kirk Campbell hire wasn't the best, and it showed that the quarterback development wasn't there. And I think the other part of it too is they planned on having Jack Tuttle as a starter, and he just was never able to recover from his arm injuries, and that's why they went with Davis Warren. And he just wasn't quite cut out to be a quarterback. I mean, it's a great story, a cancer survivor, and he's going to be a legend in Michigan fans' eyes for forever because he beat Ohio State when they were 21-point underdogs. So, you tip your cap, you thank Davis Warren. If you ever see him out in public, you buy him a beer, say thank you for beating Ohio State. And this season was a success because they beat Ohio State.
Absolutely. Y'all made something out of what could have been nothing this year. And
yep.
I respect that. I have a lot of respect for Sharon Moore, and his what he's able to do, what he's been able to do this year. I beating Ohio State was huge for you guys. I think,
and seeing them come from where they started the year and kind of riding that progression where they did get better towards the end of the year, and it did improve. That there's some reasons for positivity. And being a first-year head coach, it's not easy. There's so much more to being a head coach than the X's and O's. You're doing so many different things where the coaching, the X's and O's part of the football is probably maybe 10% of your job.
Oh, absolutely. And that's one thing down here. Dylan, you don't live down here, so you don't experience it as much. Down south, Alabama fans, ever since the loss to Vanderbilt, have been cutthroat towards Kalen DeBoer. And I'm like, you guys do not understand what this man has been through in the last 10 months, 10, 11 months. I mean, he's had to replace arguably the greatest college football coach of all time, had to come in, try to keep the players, had to recruit new players to replace the players that left. Oh, and he didn't have a lot of time in the portal because, everybody could come after Alabama's players. Alabama couldn't go after everybody else's players, so they had to go in the spring portal and basically had to pick up the leftovers in the portal. So, I mean, both of our teams, have had unique circumstances this year. And so, but I believe for both Alabama and for Michigan, like this is one of those greater days are ahead kind of game. And I'm excited for both teams. I'm excited to see y'all with Bryce Underwood next year. I think that kid is going to be something special. And I think, look, y'all took a step back this year, but the Big Ten, everybody kicked y'all's ass this year, but they better enjoy it while it lasts because I think Michigan
and their schedule sets up a lot nicer than what it was this year.
100%.
They don't have the gauntlet that they went through for sure this year that they got it next year coming up. They got to go to Oklahoma, but other than that, it's not going to be overly.
Beating Oklahoma is not as hard as we made it look.
Hopefully not. Hopefully not. But I think that wraps up this week's episode and wraps up this year's final show of the Three Guys Talking Ball podcast. Thank you again to Hayden for joining us. Make sure you follow him on all of his social medias here. He's going to be a great show on Friday, debuting the college basketball show. And make sure you tune into that. I think that's going to be at 9 Eastern time, 7 Mountain time, correct?
Yes, and I haven't talked to my co-host about this, but we might be switching it to Thursday this week because I just realized I'm going out of town on Friday, so might have to change that up.
All right. Well, there you go. And don't stay tuned for Thursday when Zach Willis joins the show to preview the FCS National Championship game. And with that, we'll wrap up the show here, and we'll talk to you not next time, but next year.